Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I am here with Tara B. As you guys probably know by now, we've been recording some episodes together, probably for at least 6 months now, and we've been having so much fun, and everybody have been loving them so much that we are going to continue that into 2026, probably about
Yes.
one episode a month or something like that. And so before I jump in, I would just love to ask you guys if you have anything you guys want us to discuss. We would love to hear from you. We're both on Instagram. That's the easiest way to get in touch with us. I'm at Profitable Musician LLC, and Tara is at Tara Brueske
Risky
Music.
music.
Yes.
Yep.
So we were just thinking for this episode, we want to talk about something's been coming up for me a lot with musicians that I work with, and that thinking that just having the music, like creating the music, is enough, and
Mhm.
that's gonna be like the springboard, right? So,
Yeah.
how have you experienced that kind of attitude, Tara? And what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I do think that I first of all, I think it comes maybe from the hope, that a lot of people are songwriters, they're creating, which totally makes sense. So when they're creating their own music, they want to think about getting their music out there. But I think and not to discourage that, but I think that in the reality of today's world where honestly there's just so much vying for our attention, even, I don't know that online is going to be the place to be. I just don't know that you can put all your cards in that and think that you're going to make all your money there. What do you
Yeah.
think, Bree?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started working with artists in 2015, I remember there was this rise of like the idea that you could be entirely online as an artist and you could,
Mhm.
just put your music out there and like build this fan base entirely online. But that was such a different world. 2015, like
Yes.
Facebook was not throttling our reach. Like we could actually build reach on our
Hmm.
page and we didn't have to pay for it. And so there were people back then building huge followings on social media where
Hmm.
they could just, I'm putting a song out and like people would respond and people would share and people would listen and all that stuff. But now it's so different. And I think we just need to recognize that, lest we can mourn the loss of that. Okay, well, like I know it's a bummer, but like that is
Right.
the world. It's just kind of like the whole, how we used to sell albums and now our world is streaming. Like it's a bummer, right? Like we can
Right.
mourn the loss of it, but we have to be realistic with ourselves that this is now the world we live
Hmm. You're right. I think even just starting from that standpoint of what is actually true now
in. Hmm.
of our world for musicians. And again, it doesn't mean that we are not needed, but there have been changes that have affected how music is heard and how it's done.
Yeah, and I love what you said. Like, it's not that we're not needed. Like, we need to go where we're needed. And I think,
Hmm.
especially after the pandemic, where we're needed is in person. Like, that is what
Yeah.
people want now. People want community, they want connection. And that's where live music, whether it's in person, which I think is the best, but you can actually develop an online live music community where you're performing live online. And that's
Hmm.
still like better than just thinking that I'm going to put my music on Spotify and that's going to connect with people.
Yeah, and I think, you make a good point when you say just live music. It's the interaction. It's like you said, it's the community, and people still crave it. I mean, I know the pandemic started 6 years ago. I can't even believe that.
I know.
But people are, I mean, what I've experienced in live concerts, and even just in December, I had a really full December. And so what I experienced again with people was just this. They loved having something they could connect with, something they could sing with, somebody that would be interacting with them, familiarity, and just that chance to be together experiencing something. And I have experienced that too in the tribute show that I'm a part of. Every time we perform, people are so happy when they leave. So I think there is something about just that connection that has to take place. You know, if you think about it, when you get to know a person, regardless, like even a friendship, that doesn't happen overnight. And it certainly doesn't happen from no words involved.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I know. And so because of that, like because it's such a strong way to get connected and like get become remembered by people and stuff when you've got that live connection, like that is
Hmm.
really the best gateway or the best runway or whatever for, whatever it is you're trying to do with your music, in my opinion. But the thing is that like I feel like we have this like chicken and the egg kind of thing, and I'd love to hear what you think about this. Like, we feel like we need to have music online to be seen as a legit artist, but
Hmm.
yet, if you build up a fan base before you put that music online, you'll have more of an opportunity for them to like push your music out as far as like sharing it and more people like, going to the music and streaming it when you release it. So what do you think? Like, what is the sweet spot there of like building up a fan base before you release, or releasing some of it and building the fan base and then releasing more of it?
Well, back in the day when I was a little more ignorant of things, I probably would have said, "Oh, let's just put the music out."
Uh-huh.
And now I realize, yeah, it doesn't happen. And I think in part it's because people are not, they can't search for you if they don't know you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that on like I think Spotify does create these playlists and
Yeah, there's
sometimes it will,
some discovery there, but it's not like there's millions of artists, right? Why
there
why
are
is it going to pick you?
millions. Yeah. So I do think again that continuity of trying to establish like create, find ways of getting fans first is going to help you. I had another thought and it just went past my brain when we were talking. But anyway, um, I am curious, Bree, for you, when you are, you think about this concept of like the sweet spot. Do you think that there are ways that are sustainable of actually releasing your music? Like
I
not even,
do. I definitely do. I think it really helps to have built somewhat of a core fan base beforehand. And I remember what I used to talk about before, streaming was so huge was like, oh, we
yeah.
had this boxes of CDs in our garage, right? And that really
Hmm.
resonated with people. People still mention that I talked about that, and, pictures of boxes of CDs in your garage. And that's
Right.
because, and I was in a band that did this too, we like basically recorded this CD in secret. We'd never performed live. And then we have
Mm.
this CD in our hand, and it's like, okay, now what do we do with this? You know what I mean? Because we don't
Yeah.
have a live group of people that we can sell it to yet, because we never went through that period of building that up. So I think that building up some core group of fans before you release, or at least maybe you released one or two songs, just so you have like a presence on Spotify, and so
Hmm.
people can go like, oh yeah, this is an artist who's actually released something. I think there is some legitimacy there, especially if you're trying to like get gigs. They need to see that like you have some music, I think,
Yeah.
nowadays. But waiting to like release a full EP or full album until you've got some fans that can like kind of like your little street team, online street team, that can go out
Right.
there and will respond when you say I'm releasing this thing, and then that helps kind of generate that buzz a little bit around it.
Yeah, I think it's you're basically kind of saying too, like make a plan.
Yes.
And so if you're going to be releasing, yeah, like actually doing it far before when you actually release to gain that traction to let people know that something's coming down the road. And the more that you do that, it actually is going to help them anticipate a little more, I think, too.
Yeah,
So,
because then they'll get excited about it because they've been hearing about this thing coming for the next few months, and
mhm.
when it actually comes, then they'll get excited about promoting it for you and listening and all that stuff. I think I read a quote the other day, something about like if you put something out there and no one has no one even knows it's coming, then you've done it entirely wrong. Like you they really should be knowing that it's going to come, because
Right.
otherwise, you it's hard to build up momentum, right? If when you first
Hmm.
put it out there, it's like it's out. So it's like now what, you can't create any like suspense or anything around it because it's there.
Right. And I think too in the process, what we forget as artists, I know you and I have both said this before, but is helping people realize, like, as you're getting it out there, taking them into the process of what that even means, like showing them or writing about it to say, like, oh, I finished a chorus on this song or just something, because most people have no idea what it takes, to get from the paper where it's written to actually being recorded and out there. And I think some people are definitely interested in the process.
Oh, they find it very interesting because that's not something that they do.
Yeah,
We just think, oh yeah, everybody does this. No.
right. Not at all. So, and I'm wondering, just remind me too, where would be a platform if they decide not to do the distribution right away to like Spotify or Apple or Amazon? Is there a place that they can go to still have music out online? I mean, obviously their website, but
Right. Yeah, no, and that's definitely a strategy that some people use. I've talked about this before with like these people that my daughter really loves their musicals, and they
Mhm.
don't put their musical out there on YouTube right away, right? They do this
Uh-huh.
whole like release strategy where it's like first it's only live, and then you can get the recording, but you have to buy it like through Bandcamp or through their website, or maybe they only release it on Apple Music and it's paid, right? And you
Okay.
can't and you
Yeah.
can't like just stream it. And then a year later, then they put it on YouTube, and then they drive
Hmm.
people there. So then they're getting that ad money, and then finally they put it on Spotify. And I think that's really really smart if you can ride the promotional wave like that. We
Hmm.
might not all have enough fans to do something like that because that's a really long
Yes.
stretch of like releasing, right? And that's a whole musical, so that'd be like a whole album if you did
Hmm.
something like that. But definitely you could do like your first couple of months, you put it on somewhere like Bandcamp or your website where you can
Hmm.
sell directly. And I think Apple Music is a way to do that too. It's like it's like iTunes, like we used to do, right? Where we're like getting people to
Hmm.
pay 99 cents per track or something like
Right.
that.
Wow. And the other thing I thought of, if somebody is wanting a physical product, I mean, obviously this is if you're thinking like at least an EP or something more, but doing a limited edition
Mm-hmm.
of that. I mean, I know for nowadays, vinyl is suddenly vogue again.
Yes.
And I mean, just I walked into Target the other day and I saw the whole vinyl section and I was just kind of like, huh, feels like when I'm a kid.
I know
Excuse me.
even cassettes apparently and CDs are coming back, which is so interesting to me.
Yeah.
But you could even do like a pre-order or a crowdfunding campaign where only those people get it for the
Hmm.
first month or something like that, so it's really exclusive.
Hmm. I agree. So one thing I was thinking about too, if they are putting out music, but obviously we're saying that that isn't going to be your main source, because that's the thing. Even if you sell it, I mean, you have to kind of do the math and go, how many copies of this or how many downloads or whatever am I going to need to actually like make a certain amount of money, right?
Uh-huh.
So, what other things do you think they can do in the meantime or not in the meantime, but just along with that way of getting their music out there as far as just the income? I know this can get into income streams, but I'm just wondering if there's something that you recommend to people as they're, especially singer songwriters that are getting their music out, but still want to make money as a musician.
Yeah, I mean, I think doing some kind of like limited edition merch too, right? So you're talking about like the vinyl, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
they do a merch line that goes along with that album, and it's only available for a few weeks or whatever. and they have
Hmm.
it like made. So, like when I don't follow a lot of people, but I follow a few people on Instagram, and they do like these limited merch drops,
Mm,
right? Where it's for them, it's like I'm making these, sweatshirts and t-shirts, and it's this exact design, and you
right.
can only get this design through this date, and then we're going to produce them, and you cannot order them again. Like they're not going to just be in on my website in my store.
That's
And
smart.
so that's something that you could do. It's like this is a limited edition release line of merch, and we're not going to
Hmm.
make this again.
Hmm. That just seems like a really smart idea all around.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. As far as other things, you can definitely do a tour or a mini tour or whatever around your release,
Hmm.
and you may as well ride the wave of that hype, right? I feel like it's a little easier to get some gigs if you're like, I'm doing a release tour or something. And so even the venues, they know that there's going to be a lot of hype around it. You're going to put a lot of effort into getting people out to it. Of course, I would definitely do a release party, and you can charge for that, and you can also make a lot of good money on merch at a release party.
Yes. I was just thinking when you said tour. So I had a friend of mine here in the Twin Cities. She went basically at Christmas time. She went as a solo artist, but she traveled around basically to smaller towns. For her, it was she actually decided to do North Dakota instead of Minnesota because it's not that far away from here. And she found just an amazing amount of supportiveness. And she didn't necessarily go into the big cities, even. It was like smaller towns. And my thought is because I've seen her do this now 2 years in a row, specifically at Christmas. But sometimes I think we think, well, I've got to go into all the major cities or whatever. But again, going to places like if you want to have tours where you're actually going to get people a little bit more interested, that you might get a closer connection. Sometimes, and I'm not talking about towns of like 400, but maybe a town of like 20,000 people or something versus, 300,000 or a million, because you're going to connect with people in those places that don't get as much music coming through, for
Yeah,
one
that's
thing.
exactly what I would do. That's
Mhm.
so smart, and I think it's easier to do in, like as they say, flyover states or whatever,
Yeah, we don't
places.
call us that, but
Of course not. Oh, I would never call you that.
just kidding.
But yes, I mean, the places where things are further apart and there's not big
Yes,
cities, and because I've done tours like that to states where they're just so thankful to have you, because not a
absolutely.
lot of cool stuff comes through there. Even like Central California, right? Like there's places
Hmm.
that I would go that no big people are going to come there.
Right.
And so it's exciting for them. Like if I was going to do it here, I would not go to LA and San Diego and Orange County, right?
Right.
I'd be like, let's go to Palm Springs and Barstow. you
Right.
know?
Absolutely. And I think because I guess I'm just trying to help people to think about this, like the possibilities are there and people that will appreciate you. When you live, and I mean, I live in a metro area in Minnesota. I'm in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And so there's a lot of things. Like if I just every weekend go, oh, what's, here in music, even tours that come through and stuff, we still do get them.
Yep.
And so it's like there's just a lot to choose from. But when you're in a smaller town or a smaller city, it's just they're not going to have as many options. And so for people that love music and they are all over the country,
Oh
it's
yeah.
I
No,
think
I've
it can be
seen it.
really good.
Friends of mine, or my students, like they're like, I'm doing a tour of Montana, and it's like so successful because there
Mhm.
aren't a lot of artists going there.
Mhm. What do you know okay, so with live performing, I do want to bring up something because um I've thought of this quite often actually. And so when people are performing live and other people are hearing them, I one thing I have run into, I guess I'll just say this, is that I've run into people performing live that just kind of feel like, well, if they can pick up a guitar and sing, that's just kind of good enough. And I'm not trying to get into like comparison or whatever, but just the quality, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask about. What do you think about the what we should do with the quality of our performances?
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna take the trouble to perform, we've got to have thought this through, right? We've spent a lot of time thinking through our songs and our album, and even like the order of songs on the album. Like that's a big deal
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, even now
Yes.
in the digital age. But then we just go up on stage and play whatever. Like, we need to
Yes.
have a set list. It needs to be well thought out, creating moments, figuring out, what not, don't do all the fast songs together.
Mm-hmm.
Have some things that allow the audience to participate, like you were saying, singing along and that kind of thing, that gets them involved. And think about what you're gonna say too, not just like, okay, this is my
Yes.
next song.
Right. Because people can, it just doesn't resonate with people. I just think I guess what I've seen sometimes, even here in the where I live, is other performers where it's just there's not a lot of, like you said, not a lot of thought put into it, or even the quality of where how they play their instrument or how they sing. And I mean, I have to admit, part of it just being a voice teacher and piano teacher, but I'm so the thought of can we continue to improve? Because if we want bigger audiences or if we want people that follow us, not even bigger, but just a consistency to put out quality so that they feel like we've served them well and it looks like we're professionals. Because, what people put oftentimes into the album, they want everything really good and good quality. And then they get live, like you're saying, and it's just kind of, whatever.
Yep. No,
And
we need to think about our live show as marketing.
yeah,
Would you put like, random crap on the internet, like a really bad looking picture of you
right.
on the internet, or something that looked like it was clip art? Like, no, you wouldn't do
Hmm.
that. And it needs to be the same thoughts around performing live, is that I need to put my best foot forward, not just because the audience deserves it, because they're giving me their time, which is a very valuable resource, but also this is a springboard for my future
Yes,
releases. All of
absolutely.
this is a marketing play.
It is. And the other thought I had was so if when you're releasing songs or if you're thinking about releasing songs and you've written some, see how the audience responds to
Mm.
you. That's another thing about live concerts is like when you do put out a song that you've written, you can kind of see, well, are they responding to this? Are they responding to this one? What, so that you have an idea of what actually they like. And it's not to say, that your songs are terrible or something like that. We're not talking about that. It's just trying to find those best ones. And sometimes what we think is our best song is not going to be what the audience thinks is.
Exactly. And that's one reason I encourage, sometimes artists are like, oh, I'm too good to like go to an open mic or sing at a coffee shop for free or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, and yes, you should level up and you should be getting paid and all that stuff, but sometimes you just need a testing ground for some stuff. And especially with,
Yes.
maybe you're creating a new EP and you have written 12 songs and you can only afford to put 6 on it. Like, go
Mm-hmm.
out there and perform them and see what really resonates with people. And it may not be the ones that you think will. And then, I can
Right.
have this whole like, I created this whole like matrix of, how they decide what to put on their EP. And yes, some of it is personal preference. Like, you're putting a lot of money into this thing, you should put the songs that
Right.
you like, but also you need
Right.
to get some feedback from people, whether it's, put out the demo online to your biggest fans and see what they think, or do it live like you said, and get that buy-in,
Right.
beforehand.
Right. Just again, of a connection point with people. And because your ultimate goal is you want to sell your music and you want to keep on. And so you want to know what is going to resonate and with those specific fans. And then,
Yeah, and
hopefully
I
you'll
think
gain
that
more
that
fans.
plays into, how we started this whole thing of like, you can't just put your music out there and expect that you're gonna, make money and build a fan base just by putting it online. But if you've done some of this pre-work, then you're
Hmm.
probably gonna have more success than just randomly, putting, I wrote a song, okay, I'm gonna record it and put it out there, instead
Right.
of doing a little bit of like consumer research.
Hmm. And I think also with that quality of the performance, if people feel like they have connected with you, like if you've taken the time, like you even said, to think about what you say, not just what you sing, but if they start connecting with you, that's when people start asking for, oh, do you have anything for sale? Like,
Yep.
do you have something I could buy? Because obviously they want to then take you home, but the quality of the performance has to be at that, or they're probably not going to take you home of
For
or
sure.
any of your merch.
And just that getting stuck in the memory thing, like I always talk, I feel like everybody's heard this a million times, but new people come here. So, the whole thing about me writing a song while I was in the hospital, like that
Hmm.
just becomes a thing. Like they literally don't always remember the name of the song, but they're like, "Oh,
Right.
where's that song where you were in the hospital?" Or if like when I'm online, if I tell the story about that, or if I say, when I was in the hospital and I wrote this song, people are gonna remember when I performed that. They're gonna want to hear it, and so it becomes like this little like memory jogger, right?
Hmm.
Because you told this story live, maybe you told it online. Like, I know sometimes we feel like we've told the same story a million times, but it's always different people
Of
that are seeing
course.
you. It's going to hit differently for them. Maybe, last time they heard that story, they were all good. And then now, they've experienced something like that or being in the hospital or something. Now it's going to hit them differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think these are really good things to think about as you are thinking about releasing your music. And like you said, just with that, the idea that it isn't going to be, you've got to do some things before you release it. And
Yes.
to recognize, like you say, that it isn't going to be, and I'm going to be bold here, and you might agree with me too, but I don't think that you can right now.
Uh oh.
Okay. Should I start that over?
Yes. I'm back.
That's all right. I was just wondering because I was saying I think that we can't get all our music, all our money making through music online. Like that can't be your, if you're thinking about that's got to be your only income. I don't think it can be. And I know we've talked about merch and whatever, but I guess I'm just sort of wondering, are there other things in particular that you can even think of that will help, for someone to realize like, okay, this is one piece of who I am as a musician and what I'm doing. Are there other things that can uh, help in the process of little income sources?
there's always a lot. It depends on what you're willing to do and what you have already. So I made a lot of money when I was starting out just doing like online session work. And I know
Mm-hmm.
this is again online, but it's not really because you're doing it at
No.
home. I just
Air
recorded.
gigs.
Yeah, yes, air gigs. I just did an air gigs yesterday, actually.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I do some harmony for people sometimes. A lot of times people ask me to like do a second part for a duet. I've done a lot of that, especially in the early years. I did a lot of that and I loved doing it and it was really good practice and it also got me connected with a lot of people I wouldn't have been connected with before. So I'd recommend that. I'd recommend teaching, as you're obviously on board with that. If you want to be teaching, um, those would probably be the easiest ways to get started making money up
Right.
front. But I really think the online session work, back then I just connected with a lot of songwriters. Before that was way before air gigs even. I just
Hmm.
connected with like songwriter forums and stuff like that and met other songwriters. And then they knew that I was a vocalist. They had heard my vocals, and that's how I got some gigs that way.
Well, and I just thought of, when you were talking about for putting out, like going to a open mic or something like that, where you're putting out your song, and your purpose might be to actually, yeah, see if an audience likes your song. But there's an additional thing that can happen as you meet other musicians. And so again, one thing that I have experienced here in the Twin Cities, because now I know a lot of musicians, well, through a lot of sources, but it's fun because I get referrals too, even like if another musician can't do something, they will call me for something, and vice versa. I have given names out to other people for things that come up for making money at something live.
Yes, yes, and I know we talked about that on a pre. We were talked about that when we did our one about getting sick and having
Oh, right.
somebody to contact to fill in for us and vice versa.
Yeah.
I also think that finding gigs as like a side musician, like somebody needs a guitar player or a pianist or whatever for their event. I think, though, I do want to say this because I see this happen all the time. You meet other musicians that get excited about you and they're like, come join our band, and kind of, and you have to
Yeah.
think like you feel very honored that they're asking you, but you're not getting paid for it. And that might be a good thing or it might not be a good thing. You only have so much time, right?
Right.
So prioritize. Like if you really want to focus on your solo music, don't give away your time to a band that you're not getting paid for, even if it
Mm-hmm.
might be fun and it might be good connections and stuff like that. If they really want you, they'll, and they need somebody and they can't find somebody that will do it for free, they'll give you a cut, right? So I would
Mm-hmm.
just say that because I just see so many artists that get pulled into like multiple bands and they're actually not making money from them, and it's stealing their time from their solo work.
And time, if there's anything I have
Oh,
learned in the last
I
years,
know.
it's one of the most precious commodities
Uh-huh.
that we have. And especially as musicians, when there's so many hats that we do have to wear regardless. I mean, even for releasing music, you've got a million hats to wear. I think it's really important that we do hone in and don't try to get so easily spread.
Definitely, definitely.
So,
We've talked
yeah.
about a lot. I want to throw one thing in here before we
Yeah.
finish, that I think is an important thing to say, just because I've also seen this come up lately.
Okay.
In that one money making opportunity is crowdfunding, and it can be very successful. But I want to make sure you guys understand that crowdfunding itself is not going to make you fans. And I think
Mm.
people think, okay, I've got this music. Now I want to go out and crowdfund and I'm going to go put it up on Kickstarter and I'm going to make all these new fans by doing that.
Hmm.
That is not going to happen. Let me just be
No.
honest with you, okay? You might pick up a few on the way, but your crowdfunding is not going to be successful if you don't already have a group of fans that are willing to support you.
Hmm.
And that might help you get some momentum to get it out to new people. But don't do a crowdfunder thinking that it is going to be the road to creating fans
Mm.
and building your fan base from nothing. Because I get a lot of people that come to me and are like, I don't have any fans, I have no email list, and I'm going to do a crowdfunder because that's how I'm going to, build my fan
No.
base. I'm like, no, don't do
No,
it.
no.
You're going to waste so much of your time and you're going to get like
Yeah.
$25.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that time is precious.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Now, a crowdfunder is great. And if you've done what
yeah.
we've already talked about, you've put in the work and you've built that fan base, even if it's, one or 200 like really good fans, do a
Hmm.
crowdfunder. You'll be able to raise a few $1,000s and you might actually get more visibility that way. But don't
Hmm.
do it unless you've got a fan base that you are regularly connecting with.
Absolutely. 100%.
Absolutely. So like, we had talked originally about like kind of this, the theme around this is like putting the cart before the horse, and that is the ultimate
Yeah.
one right there. Don't put that crowdfunding cart before you have the fan base to pull it with.
I agree. So, yeah. So as we're closing, is there anything else that you're thinking about that, you know, as we're talking about don't put the cart before the horse?
Yes, I mean I think we covered a lot, a
Yeah.
lot, a lot. I think it's just it really is building that fan base first.
Hmm.
And that is, it's hard work. It's whatever you're doing, whether you're a musician, you're a creator online. My first year doing this online, it's a lot of hard work where you feel like, maybe is this actually making traction?
Yeah.
Some days you're just like, I don't know. But then, if you keep plugging at it, you keep putting in the work, then that thing will happen that will tell you that it's working. You'll get a call from a venue that you weren't expecting.
Hmm.
You'll connect with another artist that will ask you to open for them and open you up to new audiences. Like, if you put in the work, that will
Hmm.
happen, but you might not see it right away, and you might not see it every day.
Well, and I just want to add to Bree with that goes right along is just the when when you are like, for instance, making fans, don't get discouraged if you have just a few fans up front, because if you nurture those fans, as you know, you talk about this all the time, but this is kind of for my audience too on the podcast. When you are nurturing few, but you gain their loyalty,
Mm-hmm.
it does spread and they start promoting. I've had this happen on Facebook more in the last year than I've probably ever had it happen with some, I'll call them super fans. And every time I share something that I'm either singing or writing or whatever it might be, they're sharing it. I didn't even ask them to, they're just
That's
sharing
cool.
it. So I think that's
That's
really
cool.
important.
And that brings up one other thing too that we kind of touched on earlier, and that sometimes we just need to ask them to do it. We need to
Right.
give them the instructions. Hey, if you share this, here's how it helps me.
Right. That's true
Because a
too.
lot of them will do it, but they are not, the super fans will just do it, right?
Right.
But some other
Right.
people, like, they'd be so willing to do it, but they just haven't thought of it. Like, they're doing 20
Right.
things that day. And if you just say,
Right.
hey, you know what? If you shared this, or if you followed me on Spotify or whatever, like,
Mhm.
here's why it helps me. This is what it does for me. They'll
Mhm.
totally do it. They just need a little
Yes.
prompt.
Right. This has been so great.
Yes, it's been awesome. And we've kind of talked to, like, about a lot of things today. So I think this is a
Yeah.
really helpful episode for anyone, either that's just getting started or that's earlier in their career. But all this stuff is good reminders for everybody in any stage of their career, I think.
It is. I agree.
Right? It's always good for us to even talk about it too. It's like, oh yeah, I
It
haven't
is.
done that for a while. I should go
Yeah.
do that.
So true. I think that oftentimes of our conversations here, so it is that good kind of check in.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Tara. I'm so glad we were able to get together and do this today. And again,
Me
you guys, if you
too.
have anything you want us to talk about, hit us up on Instagram. We respond to direct messages. So
Yes, we do.
hope to see you guys over there on Instagram. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, guys.